Yes, it's time for another Gobbet of Pus. This is Gobbet Pus 31. Is Insanity Infectious? From October 11th, 2008. I'm back from the national meetings and back into the rhythm of podcasting and blogging. Every couple of years, I get a consult as to whether or not the etiology of someone else's insanity, not my own, is infectious. Mine is genetic. Thank you very much for asking. It is usually a previously healthy person with no personal or family history who has a psychotic break, either becoming schizophrenic or manic or otherwise psychotic. And they do not respond as expected to medication. They have an atypical presentation, fevers, headache, and they get a spinal tap, which is abnormal, suggesting a meningitis of some sort. The cultures are negative, so they call me. Is insanity infectious? Maybe. Stupidity sure is, at least to judge from the incidence and prevalence. Insanity is, like heart disease, multifactorial in etiology, so it is hard to tease out infection as a cause. But there have been hints for years based on epidemiology to suggest that some mental illness is due to infectious diseases. Part of the problem with neurology is they do not have good access to the diseased organ. When in doubt, you can always biopsy a liver or a lung or a bone marrow. The cranium tends to get in the way, and removing even small bits of brain is not a good idea. It is a popular myth that people only use 10% of the brain. Sometimes it seems less. But I would certainly hate to have a neurosurgeon inadvertently remove, say, third grade while he was doing a brain biopsy. Anecdotally, I have seen a few medical diseases present as new onset of insanity. One guy was admitted naked and catatonic, and a screening chest x-ray showed large potato-shaped lymph nodes in his chest, and eventually, after a positive lumbar puncture, he was found to have sarcoidosis. His psychosis melted away with steroids, the opposite of what usually happens with steroids. Neurosyphilis, a relatively rare disease, can show up as mental illness. In my practice, it has been primarily in elderly widows whose husband brought more home from the war than medals and memorabilia. Cat scratch disease, Bartonella Hensley, can present as an agitated psychosis followed by a coma that lasts for a few days. One case I had awoke from his 3-day coma, went home after a 10-day uninsured hospitalization, and killed his girlfriend's cats. I wonder if they are still together. The other diseases are problematic. Now, toxoplasmosis can cause behavioral changes in mice, making them less fearful of cats, so they are then eaten, and the parasite can complete its life cycle in the cat. And several studies have shown that toxoplasma-positive humans have more car accidents than seronegative humans. I perhaps should have used that as an excuse for my 3 photo radar tickets and subsequent month-long suspension of my driver's license. Somehow, I don't think Judge Judy would have taken that as an excuse. Perinatal infections are linked with the development of schizophrenia, especially if the infection occurs in the first trimester. But with which virus? CMV? Influenza? Something as of yet undiscovered? Many viruses have been associated with schizophrenia. And is there a genetic predisposition? Probably. Maybe it's a post-infectious disease. Post-streptococcal diseases include chorea, with a CH, not a K, a movement disorder, and there have been some data, probably soon to be completely discredited, that have suggested that obsessive-compulsive disorder is a post-streptococcal infection. And then there's the epidemiologic data that suggests that schizophrenia is associated with the Bornavirus, which is associated with a range of neurologic symptoms in a variety of animals. And it leads to way too many born-again of puns in the literature. David Gilbert, over at Providence, has said for years that all diseases are either genetic, wear and tear, or infectious, and I am strongly drawn to this idea. So my consult this week, acute psychosis in a young woman and a spinal tap and an MR that could be viewed as due to an infectious disease. Evaluation so far is negative for infection, which always makes the case harder. I can't see if she has born-again virus. It would be nice to find an infection you can treat, but the sad truth is the brain doesn't do all that well with even minor trauma, and the thought that your child's insanity could be infectious often gives false hope that they will get better. And they usually don't. I hate that. A relevant article from this podcast is from British Medical Infectious Diseases 2002. Increased risk of traffic accidents in subjects with latent toxoplasmosis. A retrospective, case-controlled trial. And that ends Gobbet Opus 31. See you next time.